another reminder that tonight we're having our midterm socials for our dinner from 6 to 7 p.m. Okay, more 103. I hope to see you guys there. I think that's it in terms of reminders. So we'll get started with today's lesson. I want to welcome Melody and Ross Nathaniel. She's going to be talking to you guys about orthography and about sound systems. It's a really cool workshop. Melody's been a mentor for a long time, for 3 semesters. But you're not one this semester.
Yeah, I quit.
Just kidding. Anyway, so welcome, Melody. I'm going to hand out these handouts as we go.
Okay, I'm going to talk about orthographies and sound systems today, so let's get started. And let me give you a couple of definitions about what an orthography is. Basically, it's a writing system that's specific to a language. Pretty easy. And why is it important to have an orthography? Well, you've already heard this before, but in the first week, someone told you that languages that don't have a writing system and aren't documented are at risk of disappearing forever. And so one way to get around that, keep that from happening, is to come up with a writing system for our underdocumented languages. They can create community cohesion, give the community something to sort of rally around and agree upon or fight about. That can create cohesion too. We all agree to disagree on something. And good or bad, languages with writing systems tend to get a little more respect from within the community and from without. Alright, so then what is a sound system? Similar to an orthography, a sound system is just a list of the sounds present in an individual language. So let's look at this list of words and do a little activity. How many sounds are in the first word, C?
1.
Just 1? Grant says 2. What's the first one? What's the second one? E. Good job, guys. 2. That was really well done. Let's try a harder one. How many are in the second word? 4? Anybody say more than 4? Come on. Yeah, sure. What's the first one? What's the second one? What's the third one? What's the last one? So you can already sort of see what I'm trying to do here. So we had 2 sounds in the first word, but we have 3 symbols here. We've got a disconnect going on already. In this one we had 4, we've got 5 symbols. What does a C? What does the letter C sound like? Silence. Ask your friends. Alright, so let's look at this one then. The third word, how many sounds are in this word? We got 4 coming from the linguists. What are they? What's the first one? What's the second one? What's the third one? Yeah, good. What's the fourth one? Okay, here again we have a disconnect. We have 1 letter representing 2 sounds. Oh my gosh. Okay. Do we want to do the fourth one?
Yes.
You want to do the fourth one? Okay, how many sounds are in the fourth word? 3? 3? What's the first one? Are we sure about that? For English, yes. Okay, alright. I think you're all wrong. I think it's t and sh. I think it's 2 sounds. To sh, ch. What's this middle one? And the last one is? What's this E doing here? Wait a minute. What's the last sound in this word? Juice? Juice? Do you want some juice? Juice. Alright. We have a huge disconnect going on here. So one thing we linguists use as a tool to get around this is we use the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. The reason we do this is because it has a consistent 1-to-1 sound correspondence. It's always going to be the same. When you see that symbol, it's always going to represent the same sound. And it should be accessible to anybody who knows how to read it, like music or math. If you've ever been taught the symbols required for reading music or doing complex mathematics, doesn't matter what language you speak, you can still read it. Okay, these are the advantages. The disadvantages, that's kind of a big learning curve. It's huge, this IPA chart. So here are just the consonants of the world's languages. That's a lot. The grayed out areas are things that are physically impossible. The white spaces are things that are not attested in any of the world's languages. and everything else is in there somewhere. Oh boy. It gets even worse when you look at vowels. Oh my goodness. That's way too many vowels. I can't even make half of those vowels. Okay. So that's the problem, is that the learning curve is really huge. And the other thing is, no one language is going to contain all of these sounds. That's why we have our mentors here to help us. So our first tool that our mentors will use to diagnose your sound system is the IP8. Another tool that we can use is minimal pairs. Minimal pairs are two words that are different just slightly, only by one sound. But that slight difference is enough to make a huge difference in the meaning. So I've listed a few here that are, oh, no I didn't. Yes I did. Sorry. Examples. I've listed some examples here that may contrast, well they definitely contrast in English, but they might not in other languages. So we have hat and at. These are contrasted things in English. The gloves stop at the beginning of at, and the hat. Not every language is going to do this. We have bat and pat. Those two sounds make a huge difference for us in English. Fat and vat. And then sort of the non-standard term here, cat and gat, just short for something, somebody's name who's famous for something. Yes, I believe he made a projectile weapon of some sort. So what we call these differences are phonemes. So the H and the stop there at the beginning of at, these are different phonemes because they are sounds that create different meanings. So F and V, F and V, P and B, we call them phonemes. In English, here's an ambiguous one, good. This L sound at the beginning of the word leaf sounds different when we say it at the end of a word like field. Everyone try this one, everyone say leaf.
Leaf.
Everyone say feel.
Feel.
Are those the same L's? The English speakers are saying no. Good. They don't contrast in English. We don't care about this difference. It doesn't make the meaning any different for us. We don't mind. But in other languages, they might. Another example is the F again in leaf and the V in leave. We contrast this in English. Other languages do. They might not. Okay. Whoa. Didn't even touch that. All right. So let's look at a couple of types of orthographies. Once we get our sound system figured out, we'll have to decide which one you want to use if you haven't already got one. I'm going to list three of them and talk about the basic principles sort of underlying each one. The hardest one, probably, is a logographic system. A logographic system, the basic principle is that each morpheme, each unit of meaning has its own symbol. So you can see some examples of this. The word jade has this, and the word love has this. But then we have, somehow there must be two different morphemes in the word fall in the Chinese language, because we've got two different symbols here. Then we have leaf again, then we have falling leaves, which in English is fall-ing, leaf, plural, but only two sounds. So, very steep learning curve here. If you don't grow up using this tradition, it's probably going to be really hard for you to just suddenly learn it. I recently read a statistic that if you want to read a Chinese newspaper, you need to know at least 6,000 different symbols. So, whoa. Alright, this is my particular favorite type of orthography for whatever reason. I really like syllabaries. The basic principle underlying a syllabary is that each syllable has its own symbol, and they can be combined and moved around to form different words. It depends on the constraints of the language. It's easier to make a syllabary if you don't put a bunch of consonants together, and if your vowels in the middle of the word tend to be really easy. So an example of this is something like Japanese, where you don't get a lot of huge consonant clusters like the way we do in English when we say things like street. We have our ST and our R all right there at the beginning. Just one consonant. Oh, I really need to read this slide. So, I did put the anatomy of a syllable on here. I don't know if it's going to be all that useful for you guys when you go through this with your mentors, but if you want to know, here it is. 3 parts, the beginning, the middle, the end. And yes, syllabaries. I love syllabaries. Cherokee, on your handout, there's another example of a language that uses syllabary as Cherokee. Alright, and then the one everyone knows about, alphabets, where the basic principle, supposedly, is 1 symbol per sound. So we were doing 1 symbol per morpheme, then we did 1 symbol per syllable, now we're at 1 symbol per sound. English is notoriously bad about this. We don't always match up just right. The IPA, however, is a good example of an alphabet that conforms to this principle. And here we have an example of a so we all know the Roman alphabet, obviously, because we're reading it and using it right now, but another one that not everyone knows is the Cyrillic alphabet, which is used for Russian language and Bulgarian, Macedonian, things in that area of the world. Okay. Alphabets. So what do you do if you don't have a writing system? Well, welcome to LDTC. You are going to develop your own working orthography today with your mentor. A couple of just tips as you go through this. Remember, one sound to one symbol is the easiest when you start out, just working orthography. Don't use extra letters. Don't be like English where we have to have a K with our C if we really do mean ka. We have to have an E after our S if we mean za. One symbol per sound. Don't use extra letters if you don't need to. And also computer compatibility. It's just easier to type standard symbols that are on your keyboard than having to go through and find something else and copy and paste it or figure out how to hotkey and all that. Okay? Is there anything else on here? Yes, so that's what we're going to do today. Mentors, I have included an activity if you have trouble nailing down minimal pairs to do with your mentee on the last page. It's very easy. And I don't know what any of this stuff. Anyway,
Okay, I'll go ahead and tell you what the other things you'll be doing. Yeah, so all the participants, you have your handout, which has 2 activities, minimal pairs exercise, to do with your mentors together, just to get a feel for how sounds work and how you can change them and change the meaning of the entire word. And then you're going to be working on your web template, which is entitled Orthography. How fitting. So you're going to, if you have a working orthography, you're going to document it today with your mentor. What you want to do is write out each sound symbol you have, but your orthography might be different. And then you want to try to find the IPA symbol used for that sound. So with your mentor, you'll start making the sounds. I'll get you guys an IPA chart as well to use. And then you're going to come up with an example word that has this sound. As often as you can, every word, when you're writing this out on your template, every word should use the sound word initially. But some sounds don't ever occur at the beginning of the word, so that's something to talk about. It should be followed by the same vowel, if you can. It doesn't matter what that vowel is, but you want it to be consistent. And it should have the same number of syllables, so we can easily compare the sounds in your language. So, do you guys have any questions? There's a lot of information today. Do you have any questions for me about your task for today, or perhaps for Melody? She's an expert. No? Well, you'll probably start working with your mentors, and questions will come as you work together, and that's completely normal. So feel free to work with your mentors. If you are coming across something that seems really confusing or really odd, I'm here, Sean's here, Woody's here, and so is Melody for a little bit. Okay? So let's break up and start working on the minimal pairs exercise first. I'll get you guys IPA charts, and then start working on your orthography page. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Melody.